thoughts with us. So do you have that first slide available? This was the title or the thoughts about my talk this morning. Sometimes insurmountable obstacles appear to block our path. Maybe they are what they seem and maybe not. As we face them, may the force and the flow be with you, and may it be with us. But I had a distracting thought at first. I wish I would have had this passage in mind for the last No Kings rally. It's from the Apostle Paul's second letter to the Thessalonians from the Common Lectionary readings for last week. And Paul, I think you'll really appreciate this. Paul seeks to correct a misunderstanding concerning the return of Jesus. And I would ask you, as I read this short passage, to ask you who it reminds you of, okay? In reference to our No Kings rally, all right? I quote from Paul, "As to the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, we beg you, brothers and sisters, not to be quickly shaken in mind or alarmed, either by spirit or by word or by letter. Let no one deceive you in any way. For that day will not come unless the rebellion comes first and the lawless one is revealed, the one destined for destruction. He opposes and exalts himself above every so-called God and object or object of worship, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God, declaring himself to be God. Do you not remember that I told you these things when I was still with you?" Julie read that to me last week, or after the, as she was preparing for a sermon last Sunday, and I just started laughing. It was so, once again, we seem to be in the end times. There's always apocalyptic things that are happening around us. The actual end is always changing, but so then is the beginning of a new time. And may we be filled today with hope. So I want to tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a father and mother of 6 children who had grown to be young adults. And these parents had an awakening. And like many awakenings, the discovery of a refreshing new light only came through a very deep and long and painful time of darkness. Like all young people growing up, all 6 of the children, and the parents too, had issues, But for years, the focus had been on 2 of the kids. One had been seriously drinking for 20 years, while the other, a serious alcohol addiction, was complicated by gender dysphoria and numerous suicide attempts that typically go along with that. The timing in their lives was interesting, as the 2 kids bottomed out about at the same time. Though, realistically, there was always another bottom. There is always another bottom beneath the previous one. So the only true bottom is the one on which a person currently resides. Well, as one might imagine, the parents of these 6, and especially 2 kids, had hit their own bottom, a time of paralysis after having done all they thought they could, all they hoped would be helpful. Realizing there was nothing more that they could do, they came to the painful awareness that whether their children lived or died was not in their hands. It would be what it would be. And so they were all in a place where no light shone. Well, this family's story goes on, but I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to go in a different direction again. I love to go a lot of different ways, a lot of different directions. The last Sunday in October was Reformation Sunday, and I was invited to go to church up in South Range, and I heard a sermon that focused on one of the key points of the Protestant Reformation, and that is there is grace in the universe, in the powers that be, in the space between us and around us, in the Spirit, in God, and however you wish to define or name it. We are not marionettes And even when it feels like some puppet master or force is moving or casting us about, things can happen that defy logic or perceived reality. And those things sometimes seem like miracles. But I like how the religious philosophy of Taoism talks about miracles. Taoism is full of rites and rituals that seek to make what is considered the supernatural or forces of nature available to us on an everyday realm. And they call it magic. Taoism assumes that higher powers exist, and magic makes these powers available to us. So can I get that slide, please? A thought from Jacob Boehme, German philosopher, Christian mystic, Lutheran Protestant theologian, who said that magic is the best theology, for in it true faith is grounded. So having experience in a previous life as a drug and alcohol counselor, and then having preached to a Christian audience for over 35 years, I often quoted a statement that I heard many times on old reel-to-reel videos of Father Martin, one of the founders of AA. And Father Martin used to say this: "I can't do it. God can. I think I'll let him." Similar to the adage, let go and let God. Now, the sermon that I heard on this past Reformation Sunday reminded me of what is vital to existence in this universe in which we live. There is darkness and there is light. There is cold and there is warmth. There is pain and there is comfort. There is illness and there is healing, and there is recovery. No matter what happens, there is a balance that exists somehow. So as those two parents, remember those two parents I was telling you about? As those two parents experienced this painful reality that there was absolutely nothing they could do, and as those two young adults that they had birthed experienced the death of their current existence, a way opened up. Father Martin's words were true to their experience. They needed to let go. They and those who cared about them and for them needed to admit they could do nothing, that they were powerless. The only thing they could do was acknowledge that they couldn't do it themselves, and thus were able to discover a road to recovery and change. They had to let go of everything that they knew and that they were hanging on to. There is a power of evil in our universe, and it shapes our world. There is a power of good that shapes our existence. And those two forces are at war with each other, all around us, spinning around us, and inside of each of us. I've come to believe a teaching that I heard long ago from some Lakota people. There's only one power in the world, and we choose to use it for good or for evil. And I would like to believe that the powers of love and forgiveness and grace are the stronger of the powers. And I'm not sure that I'm right, but to believe otherwise is to give up, which is not the same as letting go. Giving up is apathetic. Giving up is fatalistic. While letting go first acknowledges that there are forces that tear us apart. They do exist. And then letting go relieves us of the belief that by willpower we can control our lives and who we are. As we learn to let go, we may discover that the powers of the universe bend whatever way we determine. It's a paradox. Just let it be. The father and mother with the 6 children, well, that story does not have an ending. It only has pages and chapters on the road of life. There is no ending. There is only a one day at a time journey along the paths that we all walk. But there is a way to walk that path that is better than others. So I'll leave that story here and tell you another one. When I was a young boy, my family would visit friends that lived in the Black Hills of South Dakota. They lived in a house high above Rapid Creek. They had a bed on the porch where I could be carried off to sleep at night with the sound of that beautiful creek rushing by. But that creek was also frightening because it was fast and it was cold. And during the day, from the safety of the porch, I would watch the neighbors swimming in it, tubing down a deceptively calm and deep part of the creek, from which rose this high, flat wall of granite. And the flow of the water took you right up to and against that rock face. I'll never forget the first time that I left the safety of the porch to tube that section with them. And on the surface of the water, all you could see ahead of you was this massive rock, stone that you were approaching very, very fast. Thus the name Rapid Creek, huh? And all I could feel was the fear of being helpless as that water rushed me along toward that granite, realizing that I would smash into it and I would get hurt. But I had watched others glide right on by, being carried further downstream. So, of course, I thought I could do it too. But as the inner tube carried me closer to that imposing wall, the fear took over, and so I did what was instinctual. I pushed away from the rock with my feet to divert me from the approaching disaster. And as soon as I clinched up and pushed away, I dumped over into the cold water, and the tube went on ahead of me. Well, damn it, others were doing it, you know? But how? How did they do it? I needed to adjust. I needed to experience that on that tube, I was actually safer than I knew, if I did not fight against where the creek was taking me. If I did not react, because the water took you right up to that rock and then it flowed right on by, rider and all, or not. The choice, I learned, was mine to make. It is instinctual as human beings to fight against the current crisis or the currents of whatever crisis is happening. It is counterintuitive to go with it. I learned the same thing from my physical therapist, who said that after knee replacement surgery, you do not want to stretch the scar tissue and the muscles and the ligaments. And I knew that. But that's not his job. He was there for something else. But he said, you don't want to do it, but it's the only way you're going to heal. Oh, shoot. His teaching reminded me of that experience on Rapid Creek. How the brain doesn't want us to go too close to that rock in the stream. It will caution us. Our brains caution us to go away from the pain and urge us to hang back for personal safety and concern reasons that are very valid. But my PT's job was to move me through the pain, to move my leg places that I would not have it go. But I needed to trust him. Yes, it would hurt, but he taught me to get through a crisis by stretching and by flexing and by not resisting. He was there to help me, and he used the powers of the universe. It was magical within my own body and mind for healing. Hurt like hell, but it was magic in its effect. So I'm here to tell us that the values of family and the values of community and religion teach us that we are not alone on that river Family and community are here to hold us as we go where we need to go and do what we need to do. Family and community cannot take the pain away, but they can make sure you are not there alone. Family and friends can massage that scar tissue with you, helping you stretch and flex, and know that pain and loneliness and anxiety and frustration are not the end of the story. Essentially, we need each other, and we need to do this together because we can't do it alone. The question is, can we admit, I can't do it? We can together, and I think we need to help each other. We need to let ourselves be helped. So anger and guilt and fear and sadness are all honest feelings, and it's understandable right now if we do not feel connected with each other. It might take more than one or two attempts to get back on that inner tube. We will hit that rock over and over again, and the waters that we swim in are powerful, and they are cold, and they can be very overwhelming. But fighting against the flow in certain ways, hear me, in certain ways, fighting against the flow will cause us to push away from the obstacles that confront us in ways that can harm us. What we are experiencing in our daily lives can be frightening. The stories we live about how the obstacles we face change us and how we change them don't stop. The stories go on because the experience goes on. And these stories of our involvement in community and politics and religion and work and vocation don't stop. May they continue. They change us, and we change them. So that's where we are, on that river. We are in that water. So may the force be with you, and may it be with us. Thank you.